One of these men is a priest, married to a nun. Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Terry Dosh.
Number 2.
My name is Terry Dosh.
Number 3.
My name is Terry Dosh.
Only one of these people is the real Terry Dosh, and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. Now let's meet our panel. Actor and raconteur Orson Bean. Former Miss America Mary Ann Mobley. Film and television producer David Niven Jr. And temporarily unable to make her usual grand entrance, our very own Kitty Carlisle. Here's the host of To Tell the Truth, Lynn Swann.
Ta-da! We're all here again. Good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
And of course, for those of you who don't know, Kitty hurt her knee, so that's why she's sitting down.
That's right.
So we're doing okay.
I'm missing my favorite moment, which is coming down those stairs.
Okay. Let's get right to the story presented by our first team of challengers, all 3 of whom claim to be Terry Dosh. And this is his story. Please read along with me. I, Terry Dosh, was ordained a Catholic priest. And for years, I was celibate. I lived in a Benedictine monastery and was dedicated to my priestly duties. But while I loved the church, I felt unfulfilled. So I decided to take a leave of absence from the monastic life. During the course of my travels, I met a young woman named Millie. Millie was a nun. We fell in love. Millie decided to leave the convent, and later we got married. Now I am the coordinator of a national organization of married priests called Corpus. Our goal is to convince the Vatican that celibacy should not be mandatory. I have 2 fine sons. I want to resume my formal priestly ministry. I sincerely believe I can serve God and my church while living a happy personal life. Signed, Terry Dosh. We'll find out more about this priest who is married to a nun right after this. Welcome back, and panel. All 3 of these people claim to be Terry Dosh, who is married. He was a married priest and father of 2. So let's get right to the questioning. We'll start with Kitty Carlisle.
Thank you. Number 2, where did you meet the lovely lady with the beautiful smile?
She was in a cloistered novitiate. She was one of a small group of nuns who left the novitiate to go shopping and bring supplies back.
Where was it?
It was in Minnesota.
Oh, thank you. And number 3, did you get a dispensation from the church to leave?
Yes, we both did. We applied to Pope John Paul II, and he gave us dispensation.
Thank you. Number 1, have any priests become Episcopalian in order to continue the priesthood and still be married?
I've read that there are several dozen that have done this in the last few years.
I see. And number 2, what is a peculiar in the church?
I didn't understand the question.
And number 3, what is a peculiar in the church?
I didn't understand the question.
Oh, well, there you are. It exists,
Thank
however.
you. David Niven Jr.
Well, I'll try and help you out. Number 1, what is the peculiar in the church?
A peculiar.
A peculiar. All right, you don't understand
I
either?
understand the term.
All right, that was yours. All right, number 1, staying with you. Where was this Benedictine monastery?
In Minnesota.
And number 2, how long were you celibate for?
I was celibate for approximately 12 years.
Number 3, how difficult was it to start this dating process with a nun?
It wasn't difficult because we both came from the same spiritual place. We were both coming to it from exactly the same point of view.
All right, number 1, how did you, how did your courtship progress? She wasn't in the same monastery, obviously.
No, it was a different place. She left the monastery, and I left a couple of years later.
Okay, time is up. I know the idea of being celibate is strange to you, especially for 12 years, David.
Well,
but we're going to move right along.
Oh, thanks.
Mary Ann Mobley.
It's an interesting situation within the church. And number 3, how many members do you have in your organization? I believe it's called Corpus.
It's called Corpus. It means body of Christ. We started 7 years ago with 5,000 members. We presently have a little over 11,000 members. That represents 11,000 of the approximate 53,000 priests in the country.
Number one, the lovely photograph that we saw, was a photograph of your wife as she was a nun. Was she not in a vow of silence?
No, not technically a vow of silence. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
And number two, what do you call it when certain nuns have taken a vow of silence?
There are certain periods of the day when they have to remain silent and pray. A vow of silence does not mean you are silent 24 hours a day.
And
I'm sorry, time is up, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Number three,
Orson?
now that she's your wife, have you given her the vow of silence? Nice photo. Well, the photograph, she's some swell-looking nun. Number three, was it hard to break the habit? I mean, I'm talking about celibacy after 12 years.
can we find a home for him?
Yeah,
Number three, how did you adapt? Did you adapt immediately to the ways of the world?
Well, I was not in a monastic situation to begin with, and it wasn't like we were in a situation where we were cloistered or in a situation of silence. Since we both came to it from the same place, it was not that difficult.
Okay, number one, can you still hear the odd confession, or are you prevented from doing any priestly duties anymore?
Normally, I'm not hearing confessions. That's correct. In case of emergency, could possibly.
Number 22, these figures indicate...
Time is up, Orson. And it's time for the panel to vote on either number one, number two, or number three. Our team of challengers will receive $500 for each incorrect vote with a guarantee of $1,000. And if the panel is fooled completely, the team will receive $3,000. So, panel, we'll start the voting with Kitty Carlisle.
It's very hard. They're all very good, and I just hope they're all very happy, because I know it was a terribly difficult step to take. I voted for number three. I think he looks determined.
David?
Well, I seem to always follow Kitty, and as I follow Kitty, I seem to vote the same way she does. I voted for number three because number three is sitting there with his hands crossed, and the only Catholic priests that I have ever known always had their hands crossed like that.
Okay. You voted for the man who crosses his hand. Mary Ann?
I did think it was number three. I liked the way that he answered one of the questions.
I do detect a pattern here. Orson?
No, I think it's an astonishing. I mean, that's almost 20% of the priesthood if those that are now married. My word. Oh, here it is. I voted for number one. He looks, I could picture him sitting in the box there and handing out a few Hail Marys and Our Fathers and saying don't do it anymore.
Handling the confessionals.
What, yes.
Okay, well, the votes are all in. Number one has a single vote. Number two did not receive a vote. Number three has 3 votes from our distinguished panel. Now it's time to find out who really married the nun. Will the real Terry Dosh please stand up? They did a good job on you, panel. All right, here's a picture, Terry, of you some years ago. When was this picture taken?
About 1960.
When you first went into the priesthood?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's introduce your wife, Millie, to everyone. Millie, would you come on? You are a terrific couple. I have to ask you both, how long do you think it will be, before the Vatican allows priests who have left the priesthood to perform their duties?
My educated guess is within this decade, within half a dozen years. That's soon.
Yeah. And what would be the major reason, do you think?
The major reason is the wrong reason, namely the shortage of priests in the world. The real reason, of course, is that mandatory celibacy, which is it all about, is essentially anti-woman.
Okay.
That's the problem.
All right, well, let's meet your imposters. Number two, your name and what do you do?
My name is Tom Mesereau. I'm an entertainment lawyer, and I'm not married.
Okay. And number three, since you have the confidence of this panel, your name and occupation.
My name is Dave Campbell. I'm a prosecutor for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and I'm not married.
A very, very believable man in front of the jury. Well, there were 3 incorrect votes at $500 of votes. Your team will receive $1,500, and thank you for being with us here today on To Tell the Truth. We'll be back with our Groovy Granny right after this. We're back. Let's meet our next team of challengers.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is June McLean.
Number 2.
My name is June McLean.
Number 3.
My name is June McLean.
It's up to you, panel, to locate the real June McLean, and here is her story. Please read along with me. I, June McLean, am an aerobics instructor. I'm a great-grandmother who believes that it is never too late to get into shape. A good exercise program and nutrition can make old age a golden age. I've had my own health problems, including arthritis and cancer, but instead of taking painkillers, I head for the gym and work out. After 45 minutes of aerobics, I feel like a new woman. Sure, I see the wrinkles when I look into the mirror, but I don't feel old. Of course, a good sex life never hurts, and a good sense of humor is a must. And I'm spreading the good news that you too can feel fit and young at my age. To tell the world about my new regimen of exercise and nutrition and beauty, I've written a book entitled Groovy Granny, signed June McLean. Let's start the questioning with Orson Bean.
Well, whoever you are, you don't look old either. There's 3 good-looking dames up there. I'm glad to see you, whoever you are. Number 3, a good sex life and a good sense of humor. Do you ever get them mixed up?
Oh, no. They are very important.
Yeah,
Oh.
do you like to go out with guys your own age or younger ones?
Younger.
Quite right. Number 1, the heartbreak of dowager's hump. Is aerobic exercise good for this condition? And what is the condition? A question in 2 parts. Dowager's hump, number 1. Number 2, dowager's hump, a medical term. No? All right. Number 2, now, when did you start? How old were you when you started? Nobody knows about dowager's hump. It's all right.
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, number 2.
Your time is up, too, without finding the answer. Mary Ann.
Now, number 3, exercise has many benefits, but there's one benefit that's very good for us physically. It helps our body keep producing what?
Well, oxygen is number 1 when you're exercising, which is good for the bloodstream.
All right, number 1, when you exercise, your body keeps producing something that's very good for our skeletal system.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Number 2, what is low aerobics, low-impact aerobics?
It's what you start out with, the low impact. You don't work too hard. You build up to it.
And number 3, how...
Oh, time's up. David Niven, Jr.
Groovy Granny 1. I have a question for you, and that is, who is publishing your book?
Tri-State Press.
And number 2, how long did it take you to write this book?
About 5 years.
And do you have photographs in this book?
Oh, yes. All the movements, all the exercises are pictured.
Groovy Granny 3. 45 minutes of aerobics seems like an awful lot. I mean, I don't think I personally can do much more than 10.
You're out of shape.
Well, I know I'm out of shape. I mean, do you really do 45 minutes worth of aerobics?
Definitely. It takes that time. You see, 7 minutes to get started and stretching and so forth, then another time to do more difficult ones, and then you have real aerobics where you do more vigorous exercises.
Okay, number 1, where are you in aerobic?
David, time's up. You're going to have to get in her class. Kitty.
Number 1, I do agree with you about the laughter. Are you familiar with Norman Cousins' book about laughter and cancer?
Yes, I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
Thank you. And number 2, what about nutrition? What do you do to make yourself look so good?
Thank you. I eat properly.
Like what?
A lot of fruits. I love fruits and vegetables, and as many raw things as you can are undercooked.
Thank you. Number 3, are you in remission with the cancer?
Well, my cancer is a very slight, it's skin cancer.
Oh, I see. Oh, well, that's easier.
That's easy, very easy. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Time is up, Kitty. And panel, it's time for you to cast your ballots for one of our groovy grannies over here. Either number 1, number 2, or number 3. And if you're ready to vote, we'll start with Orson on the end.
I think they're all sensational looking, but I voted for number 2 because she has Jane Fonda's eyes.
Oh, Fonda eyes. Mary Ann.
Well, I admire you all. I think you all are beautiful, and I admire whoever is June because I hate to exercise. And I don't know. I think it's number 3 because her eyes were lighting up when she was talking about exercise.
Okay, David?
Well, I thought that this particular lovely lady had Betty Davis eyes, so I voted for her. And that's number 3.
Betty Davis eyes for number 3. Kitty?
Gee, that's funny. I had no hesitation at all. I felt that number 1 had the posture and the body and everything of a woman who really does aerobics and exercises.
Well, our panel has voted. 1 vote for number 1, a single vote for number 2, and 2 for Granny number 3. Now, let's find out who the real Groovy Granny is. Will the real June McLean please stand up? Let's find out quickly who our imposters are. Number 2, your name and what do you do?
My name is Ginger Lee, and I used to be a stand-in for Barbara Stanwyck.
Oh, my God. Number 3?
My name is Ruth Lubin. I teach for Pasadena City College, painting for pleasure, and I'm 79.
Wonderful. There were 3 incorrect votes at $500 a vote, so your team will receive $500. Now, in the picture working girl, it was Melanie Griffin who said, I had a mind for business and a bod for sin. Let's look at your body here. Show everyone.
And I'm 76.
And you're 76. And you look just like the picture on the cover of your book. That is, you're absolutely terrific. Well, your grandmother, how many kids do you have?
I have 5 children, 13 grandchildren, and 1 grandson.
My goodness. Now, I hope someday to reach 70s. And what's a good exercise for me?
Well, you're young. You can do a lot of the more strenuous things.
Okay.
But if you're over 65, then you'd start with stretches.
Little stretches,
Stretch,
yeah?
a little stretch.
Yeah.
Stretch. Then across the body, stretch across.
Oh, yeah.
Stretch it out.
Way out.
Way
We'll
out.
be back to play one-on-one with someone from our studio audience right after this. Here we go. Now it's time to play one-on-one with someone from our studio audience. Burton, who do you have for us today?
Well, Lynn, today we have Peggy Shane from Huntington Beach, California.
All right. Peggy, we're going to play one-on-one, and you're about to meet a gentleman who has 2 stories. Please welcome Angelo Badalamenti. Now, Angelo has 2 stories, only one of which is the truth. If you can spot the true story, you'll win $500. So, let's hear Angelo's first story.
I'm a composer. I compose the music for the television show Twin Peaks.
Now, Peggy, that may or may not be the truth, so listen to Angelo's second story.
I'm an expert on street gangs. I head the New York Police Department's anti-gang unit in Brooklyn.
Okay, panel, it's up to you to help Peggy win her $500. You'll get 1 question about each story. Let's start with Kitty, the number 1 story, the composer.
Thank you. So where did you study music?
I studied at the Eastman School of Music.
Thank you.
David?
How long does it take you to compose the average, however much music it is that you need for an average show?
For an average hour episode?
Yes.
Generally takes me 2.5 days.
All right. Marianne?
What does the musical term pianissimo mean?
Pianissimo means very softly.
Orson?
Well, if you are the real one, I love your music. I just bought both your albums. My question is, who killed Laura Palmer?
Would you really like to know?
I know. Okay. Now, Peggy, you've heard the first story. Now, story number 2, gangs. Kitty?
You worked for the police department in New York. Who are the Guardian Angels?
The Guardian Angels are a group of people from New York City who primarily work Midtown Manhattan, especially on 46th Street and 8th Avenue, to be precise.
Okay. David?
What is the most dangerous city block in Brooklyn?
I would say the most dangerous is the Williamsburg section, and it's called Red Hook Drive.
Marianne?
What does the term colors mean?
Colors means it's an identity that a lot of these gangs have. Each of them has a color that relates to the gangs.
Orson?
In gang warfare, is crack on the rise or is it going down? The use of it or the selling of it?
I'm very sorry to say that crack is on the rise, and we're working very hard to fight this.
Okay, Peggy, you've heard the cross-examination. Is Angelo The composer for Twin Peaks, or is he the expert on gangs?
Can't be both. Expert on games.
On gangs, all right. Angelo, what is your true story?
To tell the truth, I'm the composer.
I'm sorry, Peggy, but we do have a lovely gift for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
much. And Angelo, you win the $1,000. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Lynn.
We'll be right back after this. Well, panel, that's it for this edition of To Tell the Truth. We'll see you again next time. Goodbye.
Millions are on the table in the first televised cash game of its kind, with Daniel Negreanu, Doyle Brunson, and more. High Stakes Poker, next Monday night at 9, only on GSN.
GSN.